Three Demons, Book 2, Chapter 40, Fight Forever. Malachi stood up from his perch. A brief glance was made between Jake and Malachi before they both took off to a secluded location away from the school. Kazuto, Asuka, and Haname quickly followed them, a sense of both worry and curiosity coming over them. The trio quickly found themselves deep in the woods, staring each other down as the tension became palpable. Asuka observed the two from a distance. She felt a growing sense of unease wash over her. She didn't know why, but she felt an immense strength coming from Malachi. The standoff shattered as Malachi lunged towards Jake, his movements blindingly swift as he appeared in front of Jake, but suddenly Jake was then behind him with the blade of his scythe around Malachi's neck. What a burden. That time stop is going to be the end of me if I'm not careful. Malachi spoke as he swung his legs at Jake, almost tripping him before he was able to jump out of the way. But this gave Malachi an opening as he shot both his arms towards Jake, a large force of energy pushing Jake backwards as the rings around Malachi's arms fired off towards him. Damn, I should have realized those rings were his weapons, Jake thought to himself as he caught himself. Malachi ran towards Jake once more to continue the onslaught that had just started. However, Jake used his time stop to appear next to him once more, in prime position to strike him down with his scythe. Malachi was briefly caught off guard. The blade of the scythe gleamed in the light as it descended towards him. The rings on Malachi's right arm came together and solidified, acting as a shield that bounced the scythe back. A smirk then curled on the face of Malachi as he turned to face Jake. Their eyes locked onto one another. Malachi then lunged towards Jake once more, his movements both fluid and calculated. He extended his arms once more, and the rings adorning them glowed ominously, crackling in dark energy. Asuka, Kazuto, and Haname watched from the sidelines as their hearts pounded in their chests. It doesn't seem like the Hottie will be able to come out of this as the victor if this keeps up, Haname exclaimed. No, they haven't even begun to get serious yet. Kazuto responded with a serious tone in his voice as he looked on. Jake, anticipating Malachi's attacks, used his time manipulation ability to create a momentary distortion in space, causing him to blink out of sight just as the ring shot toward him. He reappeared behind Malachi, his scythe at the ready, and delivered a powerful strike aimed at his back. However, Malachi's senses were a lot sharper than he expected. He spun around with an uncanny agility, his eyes locked onto Jake's every move. In a swift acrobatic maneuver, he dodged the strike, his movements resembling a deadly dance. The rings followed his lead, tracking Jake's position and adjusting their course accordingly. Malachi's rings spun towards Jake, each of them latching onto him as they struck him, cutting into him as blood spurted out of the wounds created, causing Jake to be sent flying, skipping across the battlefield. Alter switched to Joseph. Come on now, is that all you got? Malachi cockily mocked Joseph as he stood up, wiping the blood from his lips. Oh, hell no. I'm just getting started, One-Eyed Wonder. Joseph then lunged towards Malachi, his gauntlets forming on his hands as he swung a left hook at Malachi. However, he was able to gracefully dodge the blow as the impact from Joseph caused the ground to explode, dirt and debris filling the surrounding area. His fighting style has changed. I've got to be careful, or it'll be the end of me, Malachi thought to himself as he looked down at Joseph. Joseph held a wide stance as his gauntlets glowed in dark demonic energy. He lunged towards Malachi once more, his strikes becoming more calculated with each swing, his right hook grazing with Malachi's right arm as he dodged out of the way. He suddenly felt his arm becoming heavier. What the hell? I see. His left gauntlet causes explosions while his right makes the target heavier. Just my luck. Malachi strategized to himself as he watched Joseph's movements. Looks like I don't have a choice. Malachi said as one of his rings on his right arm fell onto one of his fingers. Joseph looked on cautiously as Malachi swung the ring back and forth on his right finger. First ring, Hoko wo Muishinada. Malachi chanted these words as blades began forming on each side of the ring. Even the ring itself became enlarged. Suddenly, a huge burst of energy shot out from Malachi. It was clear he had become stronger than he was before. He lunged towards Joseph with blinding speed, swinging the ring on his finger towards Joseph, cutting him across his right shoulder blade, and blood shot out from him. Joseph endured the pain as he went in for a back fist, but when he thought he had connected, it was actually just an afterimage of Malachi there instead. You've lost your sense of direction, kid. Malachi spoke to Joseph from behind as he slashed him across his back, causing Joseph to fall over onto his knees. Joseph! Asuka screamed out in terror, seeing Joseph on his knees injured. Haname looked over to her confused as she looked back at Joseph, a light bulb seemingly going off in her head as she smirked. Joseph struggled to rise to his feet, his body aching from the wounds he had sustained. He looked at Malachi with a burning determination in his eyes, refusing to give in to the pain and despair. Malachi then once again slashed Joseph down, this time across his chest as blood splattered against Malachi's face. Joseph's knees buckled as he looked down, breathing heavily. Malachi gritted his teeth in frustration. Lay down. Malachi then kicked Joseph down onto the ground as he looked down at him, disgusted. Alter switched to Randy. Randy then began rising to his feet, his face expressionless as blood poured from his chest. Malachi did kick him down again, but Randy blocked the kick with his forearm, looking up at Malachi with a glare. Get off me. His voice changed. There was a dark rumbling underneath his words. However, this didn't deter Malachi. Malachi spun his weapon at Randy, but Randy was quick enough to materialize his sword and deflect the attack. Randy then lunged at Malachi, slashing him across the chest. Malachi didn't have enough time to react as he was cut down. Randy's blade began to glow in a light blue light as he jumped in the air. Tempest Wave! Randy swung his blade down, creating a huge slash of blue energy towards Malachi, sending him flying down onto the ground. Malachi kipped up back onto his feet as he was now joining Randy in being covered in blood. He gritted his teeth as his bladed ring began to float in front of him. As Malachi was about to speak, a man appeared and grabbed his arm. Now, Malachi, we both know there's no need for that. You'll end up catching the attention of unwelcome guests if you use your ring's true power. Azul appeared and spoke down to Malachi as if he was a child. Randy floated down to the ground as he crouched down in pain, breathing heavily as he just looked at Azul and Malachi. Malachi clicked his tongue as he jerked his arm away from Azul, his ring going back to normal as it floated back onto his arm. Kazuto, Asuka, and Haname ran up to Randy to check on him. Kazuto then faced Azul with an expression that read that he wasn't welcome there. I'm assuming the two of you know each other? Kazuto asked, getting in a defensive position. Well, he is my protege, after all. And stop with that stance. Neither of us are going to attack you. At least that's not the plan, right, Malachi? Azul looked down at Malachi and smirked. Malachi just looked away and tisked at Azul. Whatever. Asuka began to heal Randy of his wounds as Azul spoke up once again. I apologize for him. He was extremely eager to get to know you, Randy. As are many people. Randy remained silent as Asuka continued to heal him, his gaze shifting between Azul and Malachi and his concerned friends. The tension in the air gradually dissipated, but the questions and unease remained. Malachi sighed, his frustration palpable, and he looked at Randy, who was still recovering. This isn't over, he muttered under his breath before turning to face Azul. Azul chuckled, his demeanor relaxed, and he placed a hand on Malachi's shoulder. Calm down, my boy. We didn't come here for a fight. Malachi shot one last disgruntled look at Randy before allowing Azul to lead him away, the two of them disappearing into the distance, leaving the group behind. Kazuto, Asuka, and Haname returned their attention to Randy, ensuring that he was recovering well. The wounds inflicted by Malachi were significant, but Asuka's healing abilities were making a noticeable difference. Asuka glanced at Randy, concern etched on her face. Are you okay, Randy? Randy nodded. I'll be fine. Thank you, Asuka. End of Chapter 40.